Why some people never say sorry. The psychology will shock you. You know that person who could burn down your house and still find a way to blame you for leaving matches around. Yeah, that friend isn't stubborn. They're protecting something way deeper than their ego. If you've ever dealt with someone who'd rather die than admit they're wrong, welcome. You're about to understand exactly what's happening in their brain when they're clearly, obviously, undeniably wrong, but still acting like they're the victim. Here's the thing about people who never apologize. They're not evil. They're just terrified of something that most of us take for granted, being human. Think about the last time someone refused to apologize to you. Really think about it. They probably didn't just ignore what they did wrong. They found 17 different ways to tell why it was actually your fault, or why circumstances made them do it, or why you're being too sensitive. Sound familiar? Psychology calls this cognitive dissonance. It's when your brain literally can't handle holding two conflicting ideas at the same time. Like, I'm a good person and I just did something hurtful. So instead of dealing with that uncomfortable feeling, their brain just rewrites reality. And here's what's wild. These people aren't lying to you. They're lying to themselves so effectively that they actually believe their own story. Their brain is running damage control in real time, and they don't even realize it's happening. But there's something deeper going on here. People who can't apologize usually grew up in environments where being wrong meant being worthless. Maybe they had parents who exploded when they made mistakes. Maybe they learned that admitting fault meant losing love, safety, or respect. So their brain developed this defense system. If I'm never wrong, I'm never in danger. Here's the crazy part. When these people refuse to apologize, they think they're being strong. In their mind, saying sorry is like admitting defeat. It's like surrendering their power. They don't see it as taking responsibility. They see it as putting themselves at your mercy. There's this psychological concept called vulnerable narcissism. Not the grandiose type you see in movies, but the fragile kind. These people have such a shaky sense of self that any admission of wrongdoing feels like their entire identity is under attack. So they'll defend obviously wrong positions just to keep their self-image intact. And let's be honest about something. Society kind of reinforces this behavior. We live in a culture where apologizing is seen as weakness, where lawyers tell you never to admit fault, where politicians twist themselves into pretzels rather than say I was wrong. We've created a world where being right is more important than being honest. But here's what really gets me. People who never apologize are usually the ones who demand apologies from everyone else. They'll hold grudges forever if someone doesn't say sorry to them, but they can't see the irony. It's like they think apologies are something other people owe them, not something they owe others. Think about someone you know like this. When they mess up, do they deflect? Well, you did this last week. Do they minimize? It wasn't that big of a deal. Do they blame circumstances? I was stressed, I didn't sleep well, traffic was bad. They've got a whole toolkit of excuses, but no room for accountability. Here's something fascinating. Research shows that people who struggle with apologies often have what's called an external locus of control. They see themselves as victims of circumstances, rather than agents of their own actions. Bad things happen to them, they don't cause bad things. So when they hurt someone, their brain literally can't compute that they're responsible. But here's where it gets really interesting. Some people can't apologize because they're terrified of the emotional intimacy that comes with it. A real apology requires vulnerability. You have to acknowledge someone else's pain, take responsibility for your part in it, and commit to doing better. For people who struggle with emotional connection, that's absolutely terrifying. There's also this perfection trap. Some people have built their entire identity around being competent, reliable, and right. They're the ones everyone comes to for advice. They're the problem solvers, the fixers. Admitting they made a mistake doesn't just hurt their ego, it threatens their entire role in their social circle. And let's talk about what happens to the people around them. Living with someone who never apologizes is like living in an alternate reality. You start questioning your own memory, your own feelings, your own perception of events. It's a form of gaslighting, but often it's not intentional. They're not trying to manipulate you, they genuinely believe their version of reality. Psychology shows us that people who struggle with apologies often have what researchers call shame-based thinking. They don't see their actions as mistakes they made, they see them as proof of who they are. So apologizing doesn't feel like taking responsibility for behavior. It feels like admitting they're fundamentally flawed as human beings. But here's the paradox. The very thing they're trying to avoid by not apologizing, feeling worthless, is exactly what their behavior creates. Relationships suffer, trust erodes, and they end up more isolated and insecure than if they just said sorry in the first place. There's also this weird competitive aspect. Some people see every interaction as a zero-sum game. If they apologize, you win and they lose. If you're right, they must be wrong. They can't see that sometimes both people can be right, or that admitting fault can actually make you stronger, not weaker. You can see it in their face, in their body language, in the way they avoid eye contact. But they literally don't know how to bridge that gap between feeling sorry and saying sorry. The crazy thing is, when these people finally do learn to apologize, it's like watching someone discover they have superpowers. They realize that admitting mistakes doesn't destroy them, it actually makes their relationship stronger. But getting there requires them to challenge everything they learned about vulnerability and worthiness. Here's something that might blow your mind. The people who never apologize are often the ones who need forgiveness the most, not from others, but from themselves. They're carrying around years of shame and self-criticism, and they think that apologizing will just add to that pile. They don't realize that taking responsibility is actually the first step to self-forgiveness. First, stop expecting them to suddenly become accountable. Their inability to apologize isn't about you, it's about their own internal system of survival. You can't logic someone out of a position they didn't logic themselves into. It's just words. What really matters is changed behavior. And some people might never say sorry, but they might show sorry through their actions. Others might say sorry constantly, but never actually change anything. The people who truly can't apologize aren't evil. They're stuck in old patterns, stuck in childhood defense mechanisms, stuck in a worldview where being wrong means being worthless. And honestly, that sounds pretty miserable. It's about the scared kid inside them, who learned that being wrong meant being unloved. Have you ever struggled to apologize for something? Or are you dealing with someone who just can't say sorry? Let me know in the comments, because this stuff gets complicated fast. To get more psychology content like this in your feed, please subscribe, hit the like button, and share your experiences with us. You'll be supporting our efforts too. Thanks for watching.